Hey, I'm Julie Rose. Welcome to Love What You Love. I'm an author, creator, and enthusiast, and I've always been fascinated by the things that people are super into because they're always a unique expression of curiosity and joy and wonder. So every other week, I'll introduce you to another fascinating human who's into really interesting stuff. Welcome back, or welcome! This podcast exists to offer a little bit of joy and wonder, and to hopefully help you get through the challenges of being human in this world. It's important to acknowledge that it's especially difficult right now, and also a crucial time to acknowledge our own attitudes and our privilege, including having the freedom to love what you love. To take action to help Black Americans have the freedom to love what they love, check out the links in the show notes. Also, I'm now including links to my guests' favorite nonprofits in the show notes, so check out today's show notes for that. And don't forget to go back to check out the notes for episodes 1 through 6 for links to some incredible organizations doing important work in our communities. Speaking of people doing incredible work, let's meet this week's guest. Colin Bedell is an actual ray of human sunshine. And not just in the bringing the joy kind of way, which he totally is, but also in the shining the light on your bullshit kind of way. The co-founder of Queer Cosmos, the official astrologer for Cosmopolitan magazine, and author of 2 books, Colin brings insight, joy, and a no-nonsense attitude to the study of astrology. I had a great time talking with Colin back in February about relational dynamics, psychology, research, the influence of late-night dance parties at his mom's house growing up, having the courage to step off the path you were sure you were meant to be on, and so much more. So let's find out why Colin loves astrology, and why you might learn to love it too. Hi, Colin. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I follow Queer Cosmos on Instagram, among other places, and I know that you are incredibly passionate about astrology and what it can do for people and their relationships. Can you talk to me a little bit about kind of how you even got into astrology?
Yes. So I really had no choice, Julie. I feel like it seized me when I absolutely needed it to. I've been studying it just kind of more as a hobby since I was 12. My mother spoke about it really often in the house because she read Linda Goodman's Sun Signs, as most, good old New York women did. And she just was constantly saying, oh, my husband, the Leo, my kids, the Geminis. And I was like, what is this language you're using? And then when I was 12, I distinctly remember the very first moment I typed in Gemini, and it just completely enchanted me. And from 12 on, I was just always curious about the archetypes and what does this mean about personalities? And I had just a real curiosity in the human condition. I think most people do. I don't think that makes me special at all. I think most people want to know, who am I? Why do I want to get along well with others? And what are we here to do together? Right. And then in my early 20s, they were hard. I think they're hard for everybody. And what I realized was that astrology became sort of a spiritual path and helped me find answers to questions that I really, really needed. And then I just started talking about it all the time. And then when I was 26, 27, my best friend and I, who is a queer woman, we decided to create a website called Queer Cosmos to speak about the intersections of identity, spirituality, sexuality, sex, gender, and really just review the shared assumptions that astrologers and astrological theory it posits to our community. Going, is this accurate? Do we like this? Right? So that started in June of 2017, Julie. The website went live on June 6th. And then 2 weeks later, I was fired from my day job.
Oh, wow.
So this is where I did not have a choice.
Right.
Okay. It was like, oh, you want to be creative? Okay, you really love this shit or not?
Right.
So fortunately, I was receiving unemployment from the good old state of New Jersey. And I was able to, in that space, really just say, okay, this is my dream. This is what I've loved. I know I've actively resisted it for a long time, but I'm going to do it. And on the very last week of unemployment, I received an email from a publisher and they offered me a literary contract. So I was really new in that moment. Okay, this is where I belong. And I've been doing it gratefully and passionately ever since.
So have you always followed signs like that? Because, not everybody would go, oh, well, that looks like a sign to me. I better, keep going with
Right.
this. So have you always kind of had that mindset?
That's a great question about the signs. I think because in my early 20s, when I started to realize that astrology became a very helpful path, was also when I started studying the principles of A Course in Miracles. That book really posits to its students with a beautiful tone of just thought you might like to know, right? That the universe is firmly invested in our highest level of self-actualization, and that the universe's will for us, and it uses these exact words, is perfect happiness. So when I noticed that I was both fired 2 weeks after the job and then offered the literary contract right as the unemployment was up, yes, I think from that spiritual training of how each and every one of us are imbued with the spiritual curriculum and the universe is invested in our self-actualization and our enlightenment, I was able to trust and walk with faith that it was not a coincidence. And first of all, I don't believe in coincidences. I mean, we took a word that originally meant to coincide, it was a mathematical term, and then somehow applied the complete opposite definition to it. So I don't believe in any. I don't not believe in. I think everything is significant. I think there's connection in all things. And Pisces, you as that sun sign know beautifully. So yeah, I knew right away. Okay, Colin, green light, pedal to the metal.
Yeah. Now, when you were young, so you said your mom kind of read the Linda Goodman book. Did that kind of, I mean, besides her kind of just, oh, well, my husband, the Leo, my kids, the Geminis, whatever.
Right.
Right. I mean, what did it, was it kind of indicative of a worldview or a mindset that she had that you kind of inherited?
That's a great question. Oh, that's such a great question. Way to go, Cancer Moon. So I think there was definitely a culture in my family where enchantment, oh, this is interesting, and I might get emotional. Oh, Pisces energy. Woo!
That's okay.
So I
go with it.
No, this is good, right? I know. I'm just going to do with it. We were not raised with a whole lot of financial and professional access, right? Like my parents literally had to work like 6 jobs to do the bare minimum, right? So what they were able to do is create a sensibility in my family of just enchantment. And it was totally free. I mean, my mother used to just like turn off all the lights, play the radio, light candles, and have dance parties for us. We couldn't go to the movies. We couldn't really do a whole lot, but she just created this energy of magic and enchantment wherever she went. And so did my dad. He really supported that. And I think what that instilled within me is that there is another world holding this one up, and that magic is real, and let's talk about it and let's live it every day. And I think if it wasn't for my family's class difficulties, I don't think I would be able to, and I wouldn't have known this if it wasn't for this conversation. So way to go, Julie. I don't think I would have known. So yeah, I think it was deeply inherited. Yes. To answer your question. Yes.
Beautiful. Now, what does she kind of still follow along with astrology? Is she?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. She has become one of my biggest cheerleaders, which I'm so grateful for. Always was. She's my mother, right? And she is very curious about what I'm learning, and we're always sharing about it. And she's also just alarmingly intuitive. Like sometimes I'll like kind of snap and be like, Mom, what's the first thing you're thinking of right now? To kind of like jolt her into the channeling mode. And she'll say, oh, this just happened here. And she's often correct, Julie.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's definitely in the lineage. I know that you're obviously a feminist and speaking on women's issues deeply. I would argue that what I do is because of my matrilineal heritage. So yes, absolutely.
So kind of the feeling of enchantment and whatnot, is that what led you to get your BA in Lit and then your master's in fashion studies from Parsons? Is that kind of down that creative line?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think what happened is that both were true, right? Like I could see, my parents' financial status is really limiting, and I really need to go to college and, be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer because I don't want to stay stuck with this.
Yeah.
Right. So I did not always walk the creative path. In fact, my first major was poli-sci. I was going to be an attorney. And I even had I was 3 years in. I was going to the Eastern Court for the Federal District of New York. I was there. And then my brother, back to family, he was driving me back to the school that I was at the time, which was SUNY Stony Brook, right? An amazing public education research school. Absolutely loved it. He was driving me back and he said, Colin, I just want to let you know that like, I'm not buying this lawyer thing.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're a quick talker, but yeah.
Yeah, right. He was like, hey, 6 planets in Taurus, way to go. He literally pulled the car over like on an expressway and was like, I'm just going to get this out. I'm not buying it. You need to be in New York City, prancing around, doing what you got to do because you don't belong here. And then I had a lot of realizations afterwards. And I subsequently dropped out of that school, took a year off, worked as a fashion model, and was able to see a lot of other different experiences and conversations. And wow, fashion and this. And I was at a presentation. It was spring, summer 2012, that fashion week. And I saw a model doing some like syllabi work. And I was like, well, this is not something I would expect to see backstage. I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, oh, I'm in school. And I was like, where do you go to school that allows you to handle this schedule? And then that's when he was like, I'm at the new school. I'm at Eugene Lang College, the New School for Liberal Arts. And that was the first time I ever heard of the school. And then I started doing the research. I applied 2 months later and I was accepted in the spring. And then the new school owns Parsons School of Design, where I received my master's degree, and Eugene Lang College, where I received my undergraduate degree in literature. And that school was a sanctuary to me. And I understand there's a lot of rightful critiques on academia right now and how expensive it is and who has the right. And that's totally necessary. And it also just so happens that education and the people that I met there and the conversations I had completely provided the container for me to do the work that I'm doing now.
So now you do a lot of things. You have your site, you give, personal consultations, you write books, you write for Cosmopolitan. So there's a lot of different things. Now I'm not asking you to pick your favorite child, but like, who's your favorite child? Like, what do you enjoy? What do you enjoy doing the most?
Right. Can I just say this is absolutely the most personal podcast conversation I've ever had. And I feel so safe and comfortable with you, Julie.
Good.
So it's a testament to your interview skills. You are amazing at this, Libra rising. My favorite baby, actually, it's everything that predates that, which is the research phase.
Okay.
I am such a researcher. I could do it all day long. And with you too, right? Yeah. Like, if I could, I would lock myself in an office with all the books, all the podcasts, all the YouTube videos, all the webinars, and just write a bunch of stuff down and like, oh my God, how does this connect to that? So that's my favorite part, is what predates it, is asking myself like, what's on my heart today? And then all of a sudden, the next thing I know, I'm in a seminar that's answering the questions. And then I feel so relieved that I have this place to put it, that I have the books, that I have the horoscopes, because this is so rare. I just am so grateful for it. So that's definitely the research phase. Curiosity and love, hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Agree. Right.
So anyway, yeah.
Agree. It's feeling connected. And I mean, how else are you going to feel connected to the world and to your own life if you're not curious?
Oh, that needs to be the 15 seconds, let's say, on this new episode. Right? Exactly. And then letting other people hear that you're curious about them.
You do personal readings for folks.
Yes. Yeah.
And that, I suspect, I mean, so disclosure, we did one about a year ago.
We did. Hopefully it was good.
It was good. And so I wonder if other people feel the same, where it feels very vulnerable to get a reading like that. So how do you approach that when you're working with clients?
That's such a great question. Well, I immediately acknowledge that it is a gift to me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I think that with client service, astrologer, client again, right? There's this quality of like, I know you don't, or I'm going to contribute, you're going to listen. But I try, and hopefully I said this with yours, is that like these readings are equally contributing to me too. So level the playing field, right? And then I do my best to apply what I study related to personal psychology, relational ethics, vulnerability, shame, emotion regulation, and all of that to handle the depth of the conversations as they emerge.
For someone who kind of goes, astrology, really? Like, so, right. I mean, what?
More power to you.
Right. Well, yeah. But I mean, how would you describe what astrology can do for someone? Like, why do I care if I know where my midheaven is? Like, what's it really going to matter?
What's the point,
Right.
right? What's it all effing for,
Mm-hmm.
right? No, great question. I love it. So when we discuss astrology, and if you said like, what's the point of knowing my midheaven? Let's use the context of why would a reading be helpful? So as an astrologer, when I saw your chart, I saw a very, very specific story informed by the positions, the aspects, the planetary and sign configurations. And so then I can describe to you what the story of your astrology says in alignment with the principles of what we discussed about how the universe is invested in your self-actualization. So what's in it for you, hopefully, is the recognition that this is your nature. Nature supports nature. Please contribute your nature so that you can fly at full wingspan. I think there's tremendous merit with that, especially if you connect to the reading style and the principles and the values of an astrologer, because each one's is very different. But I think what's in it for them could sort of be the recognition that you are seen, because really just people want to feel that they're known.
Yeah.
And I find that astrology can be a very, very quick journey to that outcome. And people want to know that they have the permission. They want to feel validated. They want to feel supported. So there's so much that it can do. And I think it's important to know, too, that this could be your highly individualized spiritual curriculum. And I love how the Course in Miracles says it's not up to you whether or not you establish that curriculum, but it is up to you whether you learn through joy or through pain. So, right. So I like to walk my clients through, let's have you learn these lessons through joy a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that they can feel that they are supported by the cosmic intelligence. And then that's why they can walk in faith. That's why they can be brave. That's why they can be courageous and vulnerable, because the same powers that keep planets revolving around the sun, that gave you this astrology chart, is also invested in you expressing it. So why wouldn't you do it?
I'm interested in the modalities. I mean, so you say feeling comfortable with different astrologers, approaches. Are there like schools of astrology, or is this like your approach?
Julie, let me tell you, because I got in some hot water.
Oh, okay.
There are schools.
Okay.
And what I believe is that these schools have become a lot like chapels, and they want to protect the gospel. And I won't stand for that shit. So I ran my Gemini mouth a few weeks ago. Don't regret it, P.S.
Right.
And was basically like, what the hell is this in detriment fall bullshit? Right? Because I made a video about Venus and Aries. Now, according to this one school of thought, Julie, that's considered a detriment. So I got these comments from my viewers like, oh, I never knew this was anything to be proud of. I was like, and then I dismissed the first one. I was like, oh, of course, yeah. And then I saw, because I'm a researcher, that a certain pattern was emerging within the data, which then provided me to go, well, what's the causation here? Oh, so there's a school of thought that makes you feel like you have nothing to be proud of, and it's within my umbrella? Oh, then we have a real big problem. So I took them to task and I said, where do you get off thinking that you can tell people that they're fundamentally inarticulate and not able to express the love and shame or emotion that's in their life, when actually the qualitative research that I presented in this video proved that the planet that you think is in detriment is actually really successful. So can you maybe fact check for accuracy the principles that you're recycling in today's culture, please?
So what do you mean in detriment? Because I don't think I think I know what it means, and I don't know if my listeners
so
do.
This is thank you for telling me. So it's essentially within that school of thought, like in detriment and fall. So Venus is considered in detriment in Aries because Aries is a sign of selfhood and autonomy and Martian ruled I, and Venus is an energy that's most associated with relationships and harmony. So you can see the tension between Venus ruled harmony relating and Aries ruled I, sovereignty, freedom, right? Okay. But then, according to the continuing education seminar that I've been enrolled in with Esther Perel and her colleagues in the field of relational sciences and sex therapy, we are most drawn to people when they're in their sovereignty, when they're in their freedom, when they love what they love. So rub becomes when other people are in their element and in their freedom and in their autonomy. That's when I actually crave connection with you the most. Enter chemistry, enter seduction, enter tension. And that is a bad thing? No, this is the way relational dynamics work. So when I said what I said on Instagram, people were pissed. And I'm like, sorry, but it doesn't fact check with the literature. So you might want to go back to your school of thought here and go, oh, geez, maybe we need to add some commandments here to our little gospel because this shit ain't working. Yeah.
Right, right.
So anyway, don't get me started.
Oh,
I'm still a little hyped from it.
Gosh, we could talk for hours probably about the
I
history of
know.
astrology. But so, the website that you have and your Instagram, and it's all through a queer lens.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how does astrology work with a queer lens? Like how is this different
Yes.
for you?
Yes. Well, me queering, right? Asking that question of, I'm sorry, where do you get off thinking that this configuration is not true? Is not successful, right? That's super helpful. And also too, because Venus is a feminine planet, right? Aries is a masculine real planet. Hello. Like this is 2020, let's educate ourselves. So that's where I get really queer astrology radical, like do away with the doctrine, do away with the system. It's not accurate. Get rid of it. Right. And also related to the psychologies and the what we see, especially around compatibility. I definitely want to queer the fact that people actually believe in the binary of good or bad compatibility. Queer relationships, because we've been restructuring, reconfiguring relational norms and intimacy structures since really we have our evidence on historical narratives. We know relational energies are not that simple. And you can put this in the good or bad compatibility boxes all you want, but queer people know it ain't like that. So we don't stand for it. There's so many things I could talk about with that. But yeah, that's where I'm at now with the work.
When we first started chatting, you said in your early 20s, astrology started to really answer some questions for you. What were those questions?
Ooh, look at you. You're like, yeah, which ones?
Spill.
I love it. Right? I love it. So the very deep questions I had in my early 20s were related to what am I supposed to do while I'm here? Like, what is this human incarnation crap? And then also, why did I blow that relationship so badly? Oh my God, right? So really the whole meaning of when astrology became a part of my spiritual repertoire was when I was 23, 24. So this is a powerful year in astrology. It's called a Jupiter return year. So whenever we turn an age that's divisible of 11 and a half, 12, we have a Jupiter return year, which is when the universe asks us to review whether or not we perceive our own best interests. So I'm 23, 24. And what I thought was in my best interest is that I stayed in the modeling industry and said, oh, this will really get me what I want. What I thought was in my best interest is that I don't have to be vulnerable at all with this boy I claim to love. I'll just make him do all of the emotional lifting, right? Because vulnerability is not in my best interest. And I'll just straddle these worlds of academia and fashion, vulnerability, a lack of vulnerability and connection, and it'll work. And then it didn't. And when everything blew up in my face, as it usually does, 23, 24, right? I looked at astrology and I was like, what the hell is going on here? And I was like, I'll tell you what's going on. And then I got a lot of answers related to my Jupiter return. And I also was able to find explanations related to how we can talk to the universe or the God of our understanding, whatever language you want to use. And when I was in the throes of the breakup pain, like I think I drank an entire bottle of ZQL and it still
Colin.
did not put me to sleep. I know. It still didn't put me to sleep. Because the subconscious mind in its infinite wisdom, it's like, oh no, honey, you need to sort out some stuff, right? So still can't sleep. And it's amazing because I was in total heartbreak. And I remember asking to a God at that point, I don't remember the last time I prayed. And I was like, God, if you're there, if you're alive, whatever the fuck is up there, I could really use some help. And the next thing I know, I'm watching a woman named Marianne Williamson on Oprah talk about the principles of forgiveness as explored in A Course in Miracles.
There's that symbology again.
So it just all came out, and astrology helped me ask the questions so that I could find myself living into the answer. I forgot which astrologer said this, but it's not that astrology is a choice maker. It's simply a choice revealer, which I really love.
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
Like, because a lot of people would come to an astrologer and go, so should I marry this person? Yes or no? Or what do you think about this job? When really that's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to hold an effective, clarified, grounded, supported, researched space to help you ask yourself the right questions, match with you, because you're going to live with the consequences, not me. So it's not me to say, oh no, break up with his ass or stay with him. I don't know. But let's talk about, so why did you choose this relationship? Let's talk about the origin stories a little bit. Oh, so let's bring it back to childhood. Like, let me ask you the right questions. Because also, too, the goal of my readings, hopefully, is to kind of feel like I'm never needed again. I want my clients to feel like you already have the answers, boo. You already know. Forgive the New York City noise pollution.
All good, all good.
Yeah, right. No, so just to make people feel like they already have the truth and the answers with them, I can't be that choice maker for them. I can just ask them the questions so that they can check in with their inner knowing, know what the truth is that matches with them, and then have the courage to then make those choices from there.
So do you have someone who reads your chart for you?
Great question. Yes, because at several friends, because we're all in the field together. And I also don't care. Is that bad? I'm like, I almost want, oh my God, I almost want to protect the little amount of uncertainty I still have. Like, life is very uncertain. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be grandiose about it, but as an energy forecaster and as a person who is trained to predict and measure outcome and sometimes it's like, well, okay, I want to preserve my enchantment, please. So I don't often ask. I don't even really care. They'll do it anyway. I just want to let you know the reason why this happened was because, and that's sweet. Like, I don't get any kind of emotionally upset about that, but I hardly ever ask. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Cobbler's children kind of thing. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh,
so has this branched off into other interests that you didn't anticipate? Like, I think you probably already were a researcher, but are there other interests that have been sparked that you're like, oh, wow, I never thought I'd do that?
Are so good, Julie. Okay, so yes, when I wrote my second book, Queer Cosmos, I wanted to have a compatibility section that did not have the binary of good or bad. So I was like, well, where do I get off making this information? So let me go into the research around people who I admire in the field of interpersonal psychology, relational intelligence, and psychodynamics. And the next thing I know, I am just completely taken into the arms of the data and the theories of Harville Hendricks and his wife, Helena Kelly Hunt, John Gottman and Julie Gottman, Marianne Williamson, who else? Oh my God, Dr. Joanne Davila, who spoke on relational competency. So then it became about how I absolutely love relational and clinical dynamics. I think it's fascinating to me. And my astrology does support that too, like an inquiry into this field. And I really feel like the lane that I am called to be of service to the most effectively is loneliness, which is the number one public health crisis in the United States. Because we are a social species. In the absence of connection, there will always be significant cardiovascular and cognitive decline. It determines the quality of our life and relationships, and it really bolsters our individual competency as well, and also has shown in long-term studies at Harvard and just adult emotional and psychological satisfaction that the quality of our relationships has significant impacts on our health.
And how does astrology help that?
Great question. So, well, according to Dr. Joanne Davila, a clinical psychologist out on Long Island, actually at the university that I dropped out of, Stony Brook University, she says that according to her skill-based model for relationship functioning, the top three are insight, mutuality, and emotion regulation. You have to have those three to have romantic competence. So how does astrology answer that? Insight, baby. So because of your chart, Julie will know, I got a Venus in Aquarius, so I would like a feeling of friendship before I fall in love. Let's have that container, right? And then I have a Mars in Sag. So give me comfortable distance. Otherwise, I will not be attracted to you. Also, make sure that you don't put too much caretaking or caregiving on me, because Mars and Sag needs that emotional freedom. Caregiving is considered an anti-aphrodisiac to Mars and Sag. So that level of insight then helps you establish mutuality. so that you can go, all right, not all about me and getting my needs met, right? So how do I see my preferences and desires and needs in beautiful harmony with you, my romantic partner or partners? And then emotion regulation. So because relationships in life, you know this, are really tricky, complicated, risky, painful experiences. No one gets to ride for free, and this is the cost of admission. So your emotion regulation could be drawn to your moon sign, and we could talk about ways in which, because Julie is, I don't want to blow your spot, a Cancer moon.
That's right.
Right. That's why you made me cry. Because Julie is a Cancer moon, right? We want to talk about ways to establish how you can have perhaps nonviolent communication strategies or breathing exercises, or when you are emotionally compromised, right? Don't type, don't text, don't talk room until you're ready for human consumption. These are emotion regulation qualities that astrology can give me quick access to and then bolster your relational health.
So and I have to say that I'm not surprised that relationship is a focus for you, given the circumstances of how you started in astrology in the first place.
Oh, God, don't make
right?
Again. I know.
Sorry, honey.
No, I love it. Don't just being sarcastic. I know. I love my mommy is everything to me. My I know. And my family was and still is just a very relational family. And I know what a absolute gift that is and what a rarity it is. And I don't take that for granted, which is why now, using the head start that I had, I am trying to then expand and invite information for people who did not have that head start so that they can navigate loneliness, so that they can talk about shame, so that they can increase the quality of their friendships, because that's why we're here, is to feel connected. The universe thrives on connection. And I didn't even see that. It's funny. I've gotten a lot of aha moments from you in this podcast, like who's reading who, but it's true. Yeah. And I really feel like my mother and I chose each other. We really did. She's outstanding.
So you've been doing astrology for a while.
3 years. If it's a while, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So what surprises you about it? Is there still things that surprise you?
You know what surprises me? That it still surprises me. In the sense that I shouldn't use the word always, that it is just astonishingly accurate sometimes. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like waiting for it to go, oh, see, I knew there was a crack in the system, but it just constantly levels me when I say, okay, so you had this transit a few weeks ago. Is it possible that you moved? And they were like, oh my God, yeah, 2 days before. That always inspires me. And I think what surprises me too is just the fact that it really does reveal the best of people. I got to be honest, like I was a little combative with the other schools of thought that I don't align with entirely, though that exists side by side with the fact that I have met the most extraordinary people in this industry and had the most amazing conversations and opportunities. And I've seen the very best of other people. I get to testify to a client who comes to me and wants to know how to regulate her life after she just experienced a double suicide in her family.
Oh, my word.
And that she wants to respond to that death with more life in her life. And I can bear witness to these stories. Or a person who comes to me and has been in and out of foster care for 17, 18 years of her life. And she just fell in love and is experiencing these emotions for the first time, but is scared about whether or not she's going to be abandoned again. I mean, the fact that I can hear these stories and to the best of my capabilities, try to say, okay, well, here's this strategy, here's this resource. It enriches every area of my life. I am so blessed. It is a sacred responsibility. It is certainly not easy, but I am just always in awe, honestly, of the work that I get to do. Yeah.
Well, now you're making me cry. Stop it.
Really, I am just totally in awe. I'm in awe.
Yeah.
Because I get to report this back to people, and I could say, like, oh, well, this is what I just heard, and this is what I've experienced. And then I just meet extraordinarily generous people. A client of mine emailed me yesterday and said, I am in the fragrance industry. I'm creating customized fragrance. I'd love to make you one. And the next thing I know, in Queens, in this hysterically decorated apartment, she's schooling me on my favorite things, which are like scent and the body and pheromones. And I just stopped and looked, and I was like, look at what my life has become. And I just don't take that for granted.
So now, if you had one wish about this, about astrology, what would it be?
That it would make people feel less alone, capable of connection, and prioritize their time to cultivate relational intelligence, which is the sole determiner of that which qualifies their life, which is their relationships.
And if someone is new to astrology, let's say they hear this conversation, they're like, damn, that sounds awesome.
Where the fuck do I even start?
How do I even start? Yeah, exactly. Where would they start?
Well, I think you would want to know that, like, why is this conversation appealing to you? And then connect it back to the fact that were you a child like me who went to the Greek mythology aisle and wanted to know about myths? Right. And I would kind of argue, girl, this didn't just find you today. I would almost argue that you've been whispered for this and like how great that you started now. But yeah, like why now? I would ask that question. And then I would just have them go on to the internet discerningly, please, and have a chart read for them on astroseek.com or astrolab.com with the quality of nothing should be making me feel fundamentally damaged at all. I should see this as the vocabulary for me and my personal worthiness. And then, just have fun. Have fun with it. Swan dive into the information. It is extraordinarily rich and textured and meaningful and impactful and beautiful and mythological. And we have these stories that live within us. Like, Julie, I would argue that your soul chose to live in the Pisces myth on earth as it is in heaven. Are a part of these experiences, and these divinities and values live on in you. How gorgeous is that?
You are a Gemini sun.
Certainly.
Yes, you are.
Which is why I cried and wanted to fight somebody in the same
What is your moon and rising?
A Capricorn moon and a Leo rising.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Here I am thinking it's subtle, Julie.
So I know you don't want to throw a ton of shade, but are there places that you would, for newbies that you would say, you probably want to stay away from XYZ corner? Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll make a quick suggestion because we've been talking a lot about asking and receiving. Before you begin your inquiry, ask the universe, guide me to the appropriate literature, mediation, sources, scholars, writers, commentators, thinkers, and voices whose contributions in this field will help me make sense of my life, who I am, and what I'm meant to connect to. Grounded in the intention, right? And then just have a wild, fun time. And I would just say steer clear, though, of any person's analysis who makes you feel like you do not have agency, like you are not in choice here, and or that you are fundamentally damaged. I don't see corners doing that necessarily because, oh my God, I would absolutely burn the building to the ground. But I have heard people say that they've gone to astrologers or websites and left, $250 poorer and feeling like more shit. So it's like, the hell. So you should not be feeling that way. A skilled astrologer and a skilled website can acknowledge the difficulties, right? Like, let's acknowledge difficulties of Pisces, Sun, Cancer, Moon. Like, what boundaries? Emotional empathy to the highest degree, right? Like, deeply sensitive, so nurturing, and just really trying to operationalize that energy to be of service. So let's acknowledge that there's some heavy work attached to this assignment. And you are here to teach people meaningful belonging, emotional safety, compassion, generosity, and empathy. Can't have one without the other. Strengths and challenges, baby. It's the continuum that's present at all personal growth seminars. I would want them to have a lens where they see them articulate astrology with that both end quality of just thought you might like to know this is where it can be challenging. And this is how you use this to become the best version of yourself.
Let's look forward.
Yeah.
Maybe 25 years.
Oh, boy. Oh, God. I love it. Yeah.
What do you, I don't want to say what do you want to have accomplished, but where do you want to be?
Okay, you know what? Because this came up this morning with a friend of mine who's staying at my apartment. Honestly, Julie, I would like a talk show.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I do. I want one so bad. And where we could talk to you, anybody who wants to be on, and just, make people feel once again that they're less alone, that they have more in common with the rest of the world than they thought. And I just want to have a career that is a resource to others to help them navigate their life with resilience and compassion and forgiveness and security and peace and all things true and beautiful, really. Yeah.
And joy.
Yes, joy, of course. Oh my gosh, joy. Yes. Yeah, because people are terrified of it because it is so scary and uncertain and vulnerable. Because like, oh, if I take off the armor, I'm going to get sucker punched. So to anybody who's listening and goes, oh my God, I thought I was the only one that did that, right? No, you're not. And secondly, in moments of joy, the decision we need to make is to actively practice gratitude. And not like an attitude of gratitude necessarily, but the languaging of, I'm just so glad that we're here together in this moment. And I don't know how long we're going to be together, but I'm just really glad we're here today.
I think that is a beautiful way to end this conversation. Colin, it has been an absolute joy to talk to you.
Yes, it's been a joy to talk to you too. I don't think I've ever cried on a podcast before, Julie.
Well, I'm right. I'm patting myself on the back. So
yes,
my work is done.
Yeah, the gift of a Pisces sun, Cancer, and I was like, boom, tears. So thank you for asking such thoughtful questions and being a very safe and curious questioner and listener. Thank you.
Thank you for being open and vulnerable. I appreciate it. He has such a big heart, and it was an absolute joy to talk with him. And yes, I legitimately cried during that interview. Follow Colin on Instagram @QueerCosmos or find him at queercosmos.com. His books are Queer Cosmos, The Astrology of Queer Identities and Relationships, and Gemini, both of which I'll link in the show notes. Just a reminder that you can find the podcast on Instagram @lovewhatyoulovepod, on Twitter @whatyoulovepod, and the website is, you guessed it, lovewhatyoulovepod.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, and I'd love it if you did, consider subscribing and leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It definitely helps other people find the show. Zeke Rodriguez-Thomas at Mindjam Media provided amazing editing assistance. You can find Zeke at mindjammedia.com. Also, huge thanks to Emily White for the episode transcripts, which are available to patrons at patreon.com/lovewhatyoulovepod. Listen, be good to yourselves and be good to each other. And love the hell out of whatever it is that you love. You need it, and we definitely need it. Thanks for listening. Let's hang out again soon.